Hello, welcome to another edition of the Nuix Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tomlinson, a member of the Nuix marketing team. Integration has always been an important aspect of how organizations use Nuix software. Over the course of our history as a software company, we've worked directly with many of our customers to develop solutions to their unique data challenges and, as our company's mission states, find truth in the digital world. This work integrating Nuix software with other technologies and operational environments benefits greatly from having strong partner relationships. I recently had the chance to connect Rampiva founder Daniel Boteanu with our CTO Stephen Stewart for a conversation about Rampiva's history working with our software to help customers in ways that were never before possible. I hope you enjoy this conversation, one of many partner-focused podcasts that we'll be bringing to you moving forward.
Thank you. Good morning, Daniel. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Stephen. I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Voice a little hoarse this morning, but otherwise doing great. I guess, Daniel, let me sort of introduce you to the audience. Daniel's been a long-time part of the Nuix ecosystem, a great engineer, and sort of really been a valuable partner for years. And as we've sort of grown and evolved Nuix, we're really putting a lot of effort into sort of the Nuix Connect, which is our partner program. And Daniel, you're one of sort of the early pioneers in partnering with Nuix and embracing our new approach to partnering. So can you give me a little bit of feedback about how your experience has been thus far?
Yeah, sure. So I've been using Nuix and we've been using it at Rampiva for a couple of years now. I started getting into the deep guts of what the Nuix engine and workstation and the API can do roughly around 5 years ago. We found that even at that point, a lot of the ways to access the APIs were already there, were rendered available, and if you just wanted to use them, you could start using them right away, and that's what we did. What we're having today is more of a formal program where if we have questions about that, if we want to know where the APIs are going, what's the future of that from Nuix's side, with this new program, we have access to that communication channel.
Wow, that's all awesome. So Daniel, how long ago, so it's 2019, how long ago did you get involved with sort of the Nuix APIs?
Back in 2014.
Wow, that's a serious tenure. And when you started with sort of in 2014, were you running Rampiva, or were you how did you sort of first come to know of Nuix and start to work, sort of to come to know our APIs?
Yeah, so I wasn't with Rampiva at that point. It started when I was working with KPMG in Canada, and we were using Nuix for data processing for e-discovery and then also for investigations. And it started more of a need to do certain things that out of the box we couldn't do with Nuix. So I think just almost like everybody gets their hands wet with Nuix APIs is open the scripting console and start typing a few scripts in there, and then you realize, oh, we want to take this to the next level. So build a bit more complex scripts and have those run on pretty much every project that we would do. And then a few years later, I started Rampiva, and now we have a dedicated team of developers that the only thing that we do is we build software for integrating with Nuix and leveraging the APIs to read data from various platforms, export data to other platforms, automate and manage resources of a Nuix environment, and leverage the engine to do things that might not be available out of the box. And part of those, so we're getting our requirements of what are the interesting things that we want to do, some of the things that we have seen in the past on other projects, but we do just a little bit of consulting work with clients that have projects which are really complex. If we're talking about projects which have data in the hundreds of terabytes with very complex filtering criteria, or data that needs to be put into Nuix for certain steps, then extracted, run some very customized proprietary outside third-party tools, brought back into Nuix, some other manipulation with it, and when you need to do that 30 times in a project because you get your data in 30 batches and need to automate all of that process. So whenever we have those very specific requirements from clients, that's when we really get excited and jump into the project, both fit in. And that's how we get our inspiration for the things that we need to build with the platform.
Daniel, that actually that explains a lot, because a lot of the feedback that I've heard about Rampiva is that you guys seem to be able to anticipate all of the roadblocks that you might encounter when trying to do this stuff at scale. And so, I mean, clearly that comes from your experience and actually not just building software, but being a practitioner that has done the hard yards, and trying to automate and drive 100+ terabyte projects. If you could tell me, what are some of the things that you think really differentiate Rampiva from in how you're making it easier to handle those big jobs? Like, what are some of the sort of the real convenience factors that you guys have added in that you find delight your customers?
So our customers know us best for the Rampiva workflow and scheduler automation and resource management suite for Nuix. And what we do there is we're able to take all of the steps that a client would do when they're processing a set of data, whether that's loading the data with specific MIME type filters with specific settings in Nuix, doing any steps like search and tag, OCRing, exporting, reloading items, cluster runs, and so on. So we're able to take all of those steps with all of the granularity that Nuix offers, but put those in a workflow and a parameterized workflow that you can then just point it to a set of data and say run, and it will run all of the 10 or 30 or 50 steps that you might have. And then also have those workflows and jobs run as part of a scheduling system where if you have 2 servers that are able to run jobs and you have 50 jobs that you need to run, for example, if you're doing an investigation and you have 70 computer images to analyze and you want to put those through Nuix, this is a clear solution for that. Or if you're processing data for a discovery and the client is sending you data in multiple batches, again, this is a very useful thing to use. So we take those jobs and schedule them and run them on the available resources, both in terms of hardware and the available Nuix licenses resources.
Wow. I mean, so you've done sort of all of these automation aspects, and it sounds like sort of a tremendous amount of convenience that you've built in. What's the biggest job that either you or sort of with Rampiva and your customers have you tackled?
I think it would be a job where we processed around 180 terabytes of data, and we needed that data to be processed in a month. And the nature of the data allowed us to take some shortcuts when we were processing with Nuix and had the Rampiva workflow automation on top of it, where we have some very technical features such as load time deduplication. So if you have data, for example, in this case, the client had monthly backups, full monthly backups for a period of almost 10 years. And with the Rampiva load type deduplication, which leverages the worker side scripting feature in the Nuix engine, we're able to live when loading the data to identify those duplicates and skip them entirely, which saves a tremendous amount of time when processing the data, and then also reduces the case size and all of the steps that are done in the case at a later point. So I think that would be one of our largest cases in terms of volume. We've done other complex cases which were large, not in terms of the volumes of the data that were processed, but we had a case where, like I said, previously the client received data from the end user in 30 different batches, and they had a workflow where they had to do a large number of steps, around 40 to 50 steps on each of these batches, which involved loading the data, doing very custom filtering, exporting, running a third-party conversion software, bringing the data in, segregating it again, running reports, doing a legal export, doing metadata exports, and all of those steps needed to be done for each of these 30 batches of data. So that one was a large project in itself, just because of the activities that needed to be done and the number of times they needed to be repeated, which when running with the tools that we're building, it was just a matter of more or less one click for each of those batches.
Oh, wow. That's phenomenal to be able to take, that complex of a process and basically distill it down to one click is really cool. I mean, when you're when your customers are setting that up and configuring that, there's always this balance between customization and configuration. When they got that workflow set up, with the 50 different steps, how much of that was sort of required scripting or customization or sort of bending the workflow versus sort of ticking boxes and configuring different parameters?
So for the standard client requirements, or if you're just talking about your typical e-discovery workflow, your typical investigation workflow, it's just a matter of checking boxes and choosing options from drop-downs. But I'd say every client comes to us with a specific requirement that we hadn't thought of before. So even for your average e-discovery shop or your average investigation lab, we're adding at least one of the features that they're suggesting that we don't have in the product, and we're adding it in. For more complex ones, like the one that we mentioned with the 30 steps, I think we built 4 or 5 new operations in Rampiva workflow to be able to deliver on that. Those were things that we didn't have there before. So we're really getting the inspiration for what to build from the clients. We're not geniuses when it comes down to what are the features that we should have in there and how they should work. We have a long-term vision and strategy of how everything should mesh together, but ultimately it's the clients that are telling us the things that they need.
So that's really a great segue to sort of, as you start to think of your long-term vision and strategy, how do you see the relationship between Rampiva and Nuix sort of growing over time and taking on new use cases, new opportunities, et cetera?
I'm really excited about what the future holds for us. I think, like I said, right now we're mostly known for this automation and resource management platform that we have, but we also do a lot of custom development and integration work. We've done development for some clients that have a highly customized internal document management platform. Or we're collecting data from construction-based document management platforms like Aconex, Teambinder, CoreWorks, and a lot of the clients have these specific needs of either getting data from somewhere or doing something with their data that might be addressed up to 90 or 95% by the out-of-the-box Nuix platform. And we're there and we want to help these clients develop these and take the solution the last 5% or 10% to get it to do everything and more that they wanted. So now that we have this formal partnership with Nuix, we're really excited because this will really expand our visibility to the Nuix customers and other potential Nuix partners, and let them know that we have this capability of doing this custom work, where before they might have not known that somebody can do those highly customized development pieces that they needed.
Well, I mean, that's an amazing sort of both capability and sort of the ability to plug into that gap and sort of automate the simple stuff out of the box, but still have the reach to be able to go out and, drive that last 10% of customization into specific organizational or workflow requirements. Daniel, I've got one more question for you, and this one is kind of an open-ended one, and it's less sort of about Rampiva and Nuix, but more about sort of the industry at large. How do you see sort of the broader e-discovery and investigations market evolving, sort of different technologies, different techniques? I mean, this is kind of your opportunity to pontificate a little bit about what the future looks like, not just with this relationship, but the market in general.
Yeah, it's tough to predict the future, right? If we knew what the future holds for us in the next 10 or 20 years, then we'll all be extremely rich and successful. So take this with a grain of salt, but where I think the e-discovery, the investigation, the information governance sectors are going, with all of the advances that we're seeing right now from artificial intelligence and automation and ability to process and store large volumes of data, will be at a place where will really use the human aspect and the human time will become much more available. Instead of having technicians sit in front of computers doing automated repetitive tasks, even if those might require some configuration, let's say you're loading data from a cell phone, you're loading it from an email account and so on, we'll get to a point where we'll have systems so intelligent that they'll be able to do all of that work for us. And then you'll just have your lead investigator sit in front of their computer or through their VR or whatever mechanism, see a dashboard right from day one, from when they start the project with not only all of the sources of data and everything that's available, but already they'll, most likely if it's an investigation, they'll see what the system detected as a scenario. So if we would be talking, for example, for a fraud investigation, you might have the system already try to match common fraud schemes and find actors based on the messages that are exchanged, based on the language, the tone, the sentiment, whether that's voice, video, text, and so on. So I think we're getting to a point where before, just like with when you would have to write a letter, you'd have somebody at a typewriter type that letter for you, and you'd have that skill, that expertise. Right now, you're using Microsoft Word, and it's doing the formatting for you, and it's doing the sending for you. So we'll see that same almost revolution, I'd say, in the discovery and investigation world, where the human brain will really be able to take advantage of the technology much more, and will do the challenging, difficult, intellectually tasks, and have the machine do all of the grunt work for us.
Daniel, I love your response, and I love your vision for the future to sort of allow the humans to do the intelligent aspect and really sort of drive, as you've said, the grunt work in through process automation and efficiency. And I think that really is really the great focal point of Nuix and Rampiva, and how we can start to sort of think and work about the evolution of this partnership as well as the industry. So Daniel, on behalf of Nuix Connect and Nuix in general, I can't thank you enough for being part of our ecosystem. And so with that, thank you, and we'll sign off for the day.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Nuix Unscripted podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the partner program, visit partners.nuix.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Stitcher. My name's Corey Tomlinson. Thank you all for listening, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time.